Lounge with Travefy Academy, where we get to hear from travel industry voices and experts to learn more about their story and what they see on the horizon for travel professionals. I'm Stephanie Grice, and our guest is A Lynn Blanco, who is the podcast host of the Travel Agent Podcast and also travel and lifestyle strategist of Blanco Travels. So welcome to the lounge, A Lynn. We are so excited to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited.
Yeah. This is a podcast about podcasts. Super cool. I love it. Yeah, it's like a podcast inception. It's perfect.
Right?
And yet,
really a podcast on a podcast? Like,
I know it is. And that's the other thing. Yeah. So for those of you who are listening, so if you watch this on YouTube, you can see that it's the Travel Agent Podcast behind A Lynn, which is perfect. It's set up very nicely. But my first question for you, though, is just can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you got into the travel industry?
So when I was younger, my parents put me in all these different competitions and stuff, and I got to travel domestically, and I absolutely loved it. And as soon as I was old enough to kind of do my own thing, I traveled as much as possible. Well, I don't actually know how it happened, but I randomly decided I was going to go to Japan. I saw a ticket, I bought it, and I went for 3 weeks, and I went by myself, and it was kind of like this crazy awakening of like something inside of me. And at that time, I thought I wanted to do something in travel, but I wasn't sure. Travel agents weren't necessarily front of mind. I'd never used one before. And what happened, I kind of went through life, got married, had some kids, and it happened again. So I always told my daughter, I was like, she was baby, so she had no idea, but I was like, I feel like I will have like completed my gift of love once I'm able to take you back to Japan, where I truly found myself. And I took her, but we just didn't go to Tokyo. We went to Tokyo, we went to the Philippines, went to Indonesia. And when I got back, so many people were like, oh my goodness, how'd you do that? And I finally decided I'm going to look it up. I'm going to see how I can get into the travel industry. And lo and behold, it said you can be a travel agent. And there wasn't a whole lot of barrier to entry. So I decided to open up a travel agency. And that was in 2018.
Oh, that's awesome. I think that's how a lot of people fall into it, is just the love of travel. It's just, I mean, that's what it is. And you're like, wait, I can sell this and I can make money from it. And you can go on like fam trips and learn more about places and immerse yourself. Super awesome. So do you specialize in a lot of like Asian trips, or do you kind of do all over?
Yes. So pre-COVID,
Yes, pre-COVID.
it was Mexico and Asia were my specialties. Now, I am looking more into domestic and waiting for things to open up.
Yeah. Yep. There's going to be a big shift in that domestic, big time, which is really cool because it's kind of discovering again where you're already at, type of a thing, which is pretty cool.
Yeah,
And
it's my first trip. So to New Orleans. So I'm looking forward to learning more about.
Oh, yeah.
New Orleans.
Yeah, that'll be really cool. And I also want to hear more about the podcast too. So you're already in the travel industry. So tell us more about your podcast. How did it come to be? And especially what has it been like during COVID?
So how it got started is because there was so many inquiries into how I was able to put that trip together, because it was 26 days across 3 different countries. And people were just like, and you took your kids, it was crazy. So I just assumed that my business was going to be amazing and I was going to be rich and life was going to be grand. Because I had already ran a couple of small businesses myself and a consultant. So I was like, I know how to run a business. It's just, travel. Well, unfortunately, that didn't happen. It, like any small business and any startup, there was a lot of bumps in the road. And so I started looking for really successful travel agents to ask them, like, what were their keys to success? I just kind of wanted to do like a quick ask me anything for 10 minutes just to see what I was doing wrong. And there was one particular conversation that was so powerful and so valuable that I said, I can't keep this to myself. I absolutely just can't. And at the time, one of my friends had suggested a podcast. And I was like, I'll put a podcast together. No idea what that meant, how that happened. I did a 3-day crazy blitz through Google and from beginning to end set the podcast up in 3 days. And that's kind of where we are today. And as far as COVID, it's actually been great because people have had less things to do and more time to talk. So I've actually been able to not only just get guests, but to really build relationships with amazing travel agents and advisors and just travel professionals in general across the world. So COVID has been a really good time to build relationships.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering if that would be the story, because that's how this podcast came too. It was last summer. We just very similar, where we just wanted to ask really short snippet, like what agents are doing right now, marketing wise, or what, or how are they building their business right now during this time. And then we were like, let's just turn this into a podcast. And then that's exactly the same thing. So it's really cool. And it's a great time for all that community and learning from other people and hearing what they're doing. And so on that, what can people expect to hear on the Travel Agent podcast?
So I love stories and I love building relationships and I love meeting people. And the best way to build a relationship and meet someone is to ask them about their story, exactly what we're doing here. So you kind of learn the stories about each travel professional and what were kind of the best moments of and that they've had being a travel agent, what they wish they would have known when they first started, and just really kind of some keys to either their systems or their marketing or just their structure of how their businesses are set up. But this year I wanted to be more intentional about providing more resources. So I'm kind of stepping outside of just travel agents and advisors, but talking to suppliers and talking to tour operators and talking to other business services, because we all need accountants, we all need attorneys, we all need insurance. So these are other areas that travel agents really need to run a thriving business. So I'm just trying to provide as many resources for us to get our businesses up and running again and thrive.
That's awesome. That's amazing. So everyone listening, after you listen to this one, head on over to the Travel Agent podcast, and there'll be plenty more things like this. And so one other thing that I want to talk about though, during this is when we chatted, when we first met via the phone, unfortunately not face to face, maybe one day, is you were talking about how, anybody can do a podcast, and it was really fascinating to me, because I'm like, oh my gosh, you're right. It's like a marketing tool, and everyone has a story to tell, and everyone has their connections that they can bring on and talk about, and how easy it is actually to start a podcast and do it. It doesn't have to be some huge production. So can you just talk about that, and how, anybody listening, any travel advisor, supplier, tour operator can create their own podcast? How can they get started with that?
It's really easy. So as long as you know who your ideal audience is, it's just taking the content that you're already using and turning it into a podcast. Most of us are on social media. We're doing videos, we're doing webinars, we're doing all of these things. Just like we do everything else, we humans tend to make things more complicated than they absolutely have to be. And you don't know if podcasting is something that you really might enjoy or might get the fruits of your labor right away. So it can be free. There are free resources to be able to get a podcast host and just reuse some of the lives that you've done on Facebook or IGTV, and then repurpose them to podcasts. It doesn't have to be an hour. It doesn't have to be a half an hour. There are micro podcasts that are only 60 seconds. And so I think that we just make it more complicated. And if you do need a little bit of help, Google is always there, but there are lots of different courses. And I actually have a course specifically for travel agents, because it's a little different because you have so many opportunities. But the other thing is, when you collaborate with other travel professionals, you are widening your audience. And we all know that everything isn't for everybody. So there may be people who are listening to or watching the person that you have on who really resonates with you, and vice versa. So it's really just helping each other out, weed out, the unperfect client. So there's just a lot of opportunity to use what you already have to create a podcast, which should be the top of your funnel, and getting people to learn and grow with you to, the whole know, like, and trust, right? And by the time they get to you, they've already engaged with you. They know about your life. They know about your family. They know about your business. and they're ready to work with you, and you didn't even have to do anything because they are listening to you at their convenience.
Yeah, it's so awesome. That was like when I was talking to you, even for me, because this podcast is still new, the Travefy Academy, the Lounge, and even you gave me some great tips of, I love what you said. You don't have to overcomplicate it. And it's so easy to overcomplicate because the big podcasts that you hear about are obviously they're usually like celebrities who have this huge production company working with them, editing everything. Like, but you don't have to have that. And I like how you mentioned the 60-second thing, too. There's podcasts out there that's just like a fact a day and it's literally 60 seconds. And so, yeah, very, very important.
And you already have the equipment. So everybody wants to get this elaborate equipment because they think they need it. It's not necessary. I have interviewed people and used my iPhone voice recorder. And nobody's calling me and texting me and commenting on how my audio sucks. They enjoy the content. So if you're producing good content, you don't necessarily need all the bells and whistles. Now, if you absolutely love it like me, then yeah, go get you a mic, go get you a setup, and make sure that your business is paying for it because you're actually funneling your clients into your business. But when you're first starting out, it's not necessary to do all of those things.
Yeah, exactly. And what are some on that topic? What are some software tools out there that you found that are really easy to use?
So one of my absolute favorites is Libsyn. Libsyn is the podcast hosting company. I've used several, and there's some really easy ones. So Captivate is super easy, but Libsyn is one of the oldest and most reliable. And anytime there's new innovations or integrations, they're one of the first companies that these newer companies come to. So they push your podcast out to any and every source available, which is what I really like about them. If you are absolutely new, Captivate FM is awesome because it's super easy. It is like my daughter was able to set up a podcast on Captivate FM, and she just turned 10. So there's a lot of different resources. And if you're in a position to be able to pay someone and you're just creating the content, there are lots of different resources out there that will edit and do all of your show notes and do everything for you. So all you have to do is interview and send it away, and they'll send it back in a couple of days and you're good to go. So there's a lot of different opportunities to make it super duper easy.
Yeah, that's really cool. And wasn't there one that you mentioned it's like an app or a software tool that will edit it for you, like the sound?
Yes. There are I can't remember the name now, but I will send it to you. So I'm always looking for new stuff. And there are actually two sites that if you upload the podcast, it'll just kind of edit the sound and make it sound really professional. And it's very inexpensive. But there are tons and tons of tools, and every week there's just something else that's coming out to make it super easy to produce and start and launch and grow a podcast.
That's so cool. That blew my mind. I didn't know that existed. So yeah, as long as we know it exists, we can go Google for it. But that is so cool because that's the one thing is the sound is always, I think, the one of the hardest things that people worry about because if there's background noise. But 2021, man, there's some such high quality like software out there that will make your life easy. So that's really cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And that's really what I wanted to talk about today because I love the idea of a podcast does not have to be something crazy and simple or really hard. And you can just do it and it can be a new marketing stream for you. And I think it's just going to keep growing because the crazy thing is podcast has been around for longer than I've realized actually, because it really blew up in the past like 10 years. But what do you think the future of podcasting looks like?
I think it is the future because we used to listen to radio and that used to be a big thing. And it kind of went to like the serious like radio. Well, I think now, since we have so many options and we're doing so many things, is that the regular radio and even Sirius, like you have to catch it when it's on. And just like everything's kind of moved to a Netflix and a Hulu and you can, binge whenever you want, podcasting is the same thing. Like I typically listen to podcasts when I'm cleaning the house or doing the dishes. So I can decide what I want to listen to and how I feel at the time and listen to pretty much any regular people, right? Sometimes we don't want to like learn about celebrities. Maybe we don't want to watch, what everybody else is watching. Maybe there's something really specific because there's people out there who do all kinds of cool and interesting and strange things that you might be into. And a podcast, you get to I don't know, feel with community with people who are doing something that's not necessarily on a wide range. So yeah, I definitely think podcasting is the future. I think every business owner should have a podcast. It doesn't make sense not to, because it's so simple and it's so inexpensive, and it's brilliant because people can access it anytime they want.
Yeah, that's one of the most coolest things about a podcast is, yeah, you can just listen to it everywhere. And I don't know about you, but I feel like every time I listen to a podcast, I always feel motivated. It just like kind of sparks something. And I don't know if it's because I feel like I've just talked to somebody, but it kind of sparks something in you. That's just a lot. You just feel more community.
I agree. And I think a lot of people are saying, oh, it's video is the future. But with the short attention spans that we have, and the fact that we're multitasking, that video is more difficult because you have to use more of your senses to be able to consume video than you do audio. So it seems as though things are moving more audio.
Yeah, that's really cool. And but before we get into rapid fire questions here, I want to see, is there anything else about podcasting that you wanted to mention that we didn't talk about today?
So if you don't know, there's a new social media platform called Clubhouse, and it's based on the same principle, that it's just people being able to bring community and conversation with each other via audio. So it's an opportunity for people to listen while doing other things. Again, Clubhouse, like radio and Sirius radio, you got to catch it, right? And you got to be invited. But it's definitely a great way to kind of think about podcasting. And it's also a great place to find guests, because they're already doing what you'd be doing for your podcast, and they enjoy it, so that you can get enough guests to fill up an entire year worth of podcasts in a couple weeks. So you have content that's already working for you that you don't have to even think about anymore. So that's just another way that, I think podcasting and audio format is really the future.
Yes, I'm so glad you brought up Clubhouse, because that is so true. And for anyone listening that is not familiar with Clubhouse, can you give us a quick rundown of what it is?
So it's just a social media platform that's 100% audio, and you can go on, you can start a room and have people coming in on any topic that you want. And it's a great way to meet people who are in similar industries. And if there's anything that you're really looking to learn in business, in entertainment, or any topic across the board, there are experts on there that have rooms where you can just listen or you can participate. So you can either come on the stage and add value to the conversation, or just be a passive listener and learn some new information. So but for me, it's been a really great opportunity to meet people that I've never would have come across or would have met otherwise. So it's just a diverse group of people on a platform that are all just looking to just learn and grow together. So that's why I really, really enjoy it.
Yes, yeah. And so for everyone listening, so A Lynn got me on it. So now I was like obsessed. It's so good. But that is the one thing though that is unfortunate about Clubhouse, is if you miss it, you miss it. So with a podcast, you can listen to it when you're ready. But it is cool. And you do start to learn, what groups you want to be on, and like how you have rooms that are always at a same time. So you start to learn the schedule, and you find speakers that you're interested in. And when you log into Clubhouse, you can see if they're in another room and talking, then you can jump in there. So that's kind of nice that you can, and you discover so many people. It's incredible.
It's incredible. And so if you're on Clubhouse, every Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern, it's called The Future of Travel. And there are people from every space, corner, crevice of the travel industry coming together and really trying to find solutions as we move on the other side of COVID and what the future of travel looks like. And it's just really a great time. It's only an hour, because some of these rooms run for 3-4 hours. This room is only an hour, and it's just really a great space to meet people and to really talk about solutions, because that's a big thing for me, that we shouldn't wait around for someone else to create what our industry is going to be doing. We need to find solutions, work together, and be the change and create the new normal.
Yes, I love that. It's so cool. It's funny that you said I'm glad that you cap it at an hour because I've joined some rooms and they're like, we started at 6 a.m. today and it'll be like 12 p.m. And I'm like, what? But
Crazy.
then you don't want to get off. So then you're like, oh no, please, can you end it? Because I need to get back to work. Like, but I
Right.
can't because I don't want to miss anything. So it's so good. Yeah, no, and everyone go check that out on yeah, go check out A Lynn on there. And I know that you do
I
need some
see she's on
invites
there
and
too. Follow her.
yeah, follow me. Yep. So there's I don't know what my I think it's just Stephanie Grice. And then also David Chait is on there. We also have Doug Brandsetter from our team. I think those are the only ones, but I'll try to get the rest of the Travfy team on there. Well, because it's one of those slow moving things that people are finding out about it and then they're getting in there and learning.
And then we can do a podcast about, we can do a room about podcasting on Clubhouse.
Yes. Oh my gosh, stay tuned, everybody. Look at this. Look at this growing into something. I love it. It's so cool. Well, this is awesome. I love there's so much stuff. And I bet now I feel like everyone listening is gonna have like the next 12 hours of just like content in Clubhouse. And so they'll have so many things to do. But before we wrap up though, I do like to do rapid fire questions. So exciting. And I've added a couple. So again, for everyone listening, you probably are familiar, but I've added some different ones for Aylin because I want to pick her brain because I love picking her brain. So here we go. So there are 5 of them. So just 5.
Okay.
And okay, so if you need to pass any, let me know and then we can come back to them. But the first one, we're going on the podcast theme here. I want to know what is your favorite podcast to listen to?
Oh, well, actually, I do know. It's called Hello Seven. It's Rachel Rogers, and she's amazing. And I don't miss an episode. So I love her podcast.
Yes, and you got me on hers too. I started listening to it. Yeah, see, there's so much good stuff. I'm telling you, everyone. Okay, so on this question, who would be your dream guest on your podcast?
Dream guest. Honestly, like, and it has nothing to do with travel at all, but I would love to have Tracy Ellis Ross on the show. I think that just her energy is amazing, and whatever she says is going to pertain to life, living a like authentic, amazing life. And I don't see why anybody, travel agent or not, wouldn't want to know her secrets to like her fierce authenticity and like just amazing energy.
Yeah, does she have a podcast?
I think well, I know she was doing a lot of IG lives, so I'm not
Okay.
sure.
She needs one if not, because that's what I was just thinking, because you're right. She would be really good for that. So
She's
I feel
awesome.
like, yeah, well, if you're listening right now, Tracy Ellen
Right?
Ross, you should. Well, we would all listen to her. So now moving into a little travel here. So what is your favorite destination you've ever traveled to?
I would have to say Manila, Philippines. It was it wasn't anything that I expected. I didn't have a whole lot of expectations, but I just knew that I had a couple friends there, and I knew it would be beautiful. But it was life changing. Um, the time that I spent with different families, and just to see how wonderful and how nice and just how caring everybody was, and how beautiful all the spaces were. And I don't know, like even thinking about it right now, like I'm kind of getting emotional because it was really like there isn't one thing. It was just a feeling that I got as soon as I stepped off the plane, and just the way that everyone made us feel while we were there, like it was home.
That's awesome. That's really cool. You have sold it for me. That is on my bucket list now. So awesome. And
Well,
what
I'll help you arrange all of your travel.
yes, I know exactly who to come to because I want that feeling. That's the feeling that you look for when you're traveling. So that's really cool. That. So okay, this one is what is the best meal that you've had when traveling?
Oh man, I've had so many. Um, when I was in Tokyo, it was a street market, and I had no idea what it was. I don't speak or read Japanese. And it was this fried ball, but it was red, sweet red beans. And
Oh,
it's not a meal, but it was one of the most tasty bites that I have ever had in my life, and I have not forgotten it. It was a fried red bean ball.
no, honestly, that sounds delicious though. Like I know what you're saying, and that sounds really good. I wonder
So
what that is. Yeah, if anyone listening knows what that is, please let us know because now I want to try it.
because I do a lot of street food, so you don't really know what you're eating. You're just kind of tasting things, and
Yeah,
that food memory has stayed with me for years.
nice. That's cool. I love that. Okay, so this is the last one. So, what is the last great book or article that you read?
The last great book that I read was Atomic Habits. It I wish I could tell you what the author, his name is James Clear. It put a lot of things in perspectives because I definitely believe that the habits are what move you along when you've lost motivation, that muscle memory, and that you've been able to do, keep going when you don't necessarily feel like it. And I knew that I needed something. I needed an extra push to get the right habits in place to take my podcast and my business to the next level. So it was a great book. I recommend everybody read it because he puts everything in perspective and really helps you figure out how to create better habits.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's on my list. That one. Have you read The Habits? It's just called Habits. That book, because I wonder if that's kind of similar.
I have it in my audibles.
Oh, nice. Because that's kind of like that one. But I feel like the Atomic one is more popular though. So I bet there's just a different perspective to it that's more resonating. But yeah, that's really cool. It's a great book suggestion. It's perfect. See, look, so much stuff, so many things. I'm gonna have a notebook full of things to do after this. But
This is what I love, like these conversations. You never know when you are talking to someone, and my friends always say, you just love strangers. I'm like, because you never know, like all the wonderful things you can learn from anybody that you're sitting next to or that you run into. Like everybody is full of so much life experience and can offer you so many good suggestions. And so you just got to be open to conversation and collaboration.
yes, absolutely. And that's what we hope with this podcast. I know that's what you hope with yours as well, is just, it's just that random one sentence that can captivate somebody, and it just changes something for them. And so, yeah, really cool. And thank you so much again for spending time with us. And thanks everyone for tuning into this episode of The Lounge with Travify Academy. And again, thank you to our special guest, A Lynn, for joining us here today. But also be sure to subscribe to our podcast or subscribe to our YouTube channel for all the latest episodes. And we hope you enjoyed this conversation today and join us again. But for now, stay safe and we'll catch you on the next flight.